After 1 week of tumultuous market reactions towards the tariffs, voters are now split on whether or not tariffs are the right policy to enact, with 49% supporting the policy going forward and 51% saying no. This marks a full 8-point decline from last month, when 57% of American voters supported President Trump's tariff policy. In a similar fashion, a baseline of 10% of tariffs on goods and products from the rest of the world and reciprocal tariffs that match tit for tat the tariffs that other countries have imposed have a slightly higher baseline of support at 54%, but support is shrinking quickly. The reason for the drop in confidence, it's fairly simple. Today, 71% of voters and roughly equivalent amounts of business decision makers and investors believe that the country is headed for a short-term recession. In a similar fashion, 53% believe that in the long term, the trade wars and the tariff policy will actually lead to economic decline rather than economic growth. Further, 71% now say that their prices are going to go up, and they do not see the markets or inflation staying steady in the near future. They believe that the markets will take more than a year to bounce back to where they were, so they predict a tumultuous period in the near future as well when it comes to stocks, and in a similar fashion, they believe that tariffs will lead to higher inflation within the country. As a result, voters are starting to hold back on big-ticket purchases. While they continue to buy groceries in the same way as they did before, when it comes to upgrading their phone, buying household appliances or consumer electronics, buying a new car, buying luxury goods, only about 3 in 10 voters are saying that they're sticking with their planned purchases, with 7 in 10 saying that they are retreating from those planned purchases because of concerns around mounting prices and the uncertainty and volatility that has been caused by the tariffs policy. The reason for that is simple. Close to half of all voters believe that the tariffs went too far and were too heavy-handed. This includes 50% of all independents, 50% of all equity holders and investors within the country, the full 71% of Democrats. And while 62% of Republicans say that the tariffs are about right and they are sticking with President Trump, all of the other audiences within our study disagree. And they're growing concerned that the tariffs will actually lead to their intended consequences, namely getting concessions from their targets and being able to drive those concessions into economic benefit for the US economy. Today, 57% of voters believe that the heavy-handed tariffs that have been implemented by the Trump administration will not yield to other countries removing their tariffs in the United States, meaning that they see the potential for this approach to backfire. No wonder then that the Trump administration called for a 90-day pause to the tariffs to allow it to negotiate with trading partners that have already reached out and are willing to work with the administration on either removing tariffs or lowering tariffs and making them more palatable both for the American economy and for their own economy. The atmospherics of the poll that we just released were flashing a lot of hazard lights for the Trump administration, hazard lights that were quickly becoming red lights. 54% believe that the economy is on the wrong track, marking a 6-point increase from a week ago. 51% say that the country is on the wrong track, marking an 8-point increase from a week ago. 66% believe that the economy is weak and the number is growing, again an 8-point increase from a week ago. And importantly, 38% of American voters today say that their personal situation is getting worse. Again, a 7-point increase from just a week ago. So the echo chamber around the tariffs was yielding to a lot of negative perceptions that were reinforcing one another, and the heavy-handed nature of these tariffs and the market tumult that we're creating and the expectations of a recession and economic anxiety really explain why we have this 90-day pause and raise a series of important questions for the administration as to what the right path forward is. When we last spoke with our audience, we said that the administration has very little runway to prove that the tariffs will be successful to begin with. This week, that runway was cut very, very short, and it's an open question of whether or not voters will be able to absorb such a policy going forward without meaningful concessions and meaningful wins being touted and adequately communicated by the administration. We are polling this issue daily, and we'll be back to you next week with more insights on the voter reaction to the administration's decision for a pause and the overall strategy of tariffs. Until then, this is Dritan for HarrisX.